September 9th, 2025. It's a beautiful thing, all that traffic. It's been 2 years since my father passed away. 2 years today. He always enjoyed watching the honeybees, and my mom had bees. Just having a peek at things here. That's quite a radish. There's quite a few of those. Sizing up in here now. That rain really helped the clover continue to emerge. So that's nice to see. A whole lot of green popping in there now. So many insects in the air here. Headed out to do a foliar feed on the cover crop blocks, both out front where the potatoes are, to the west of the potatoes, that other block. It's mostly clover and winter rye just planted in there, and this block as well. And if we have any overshot, we'll go north of the beehives and hit that little section where the holy basil is. Make sure everybody gets a good boost to keep this soil and cover crop running while we have good sunlight and weather to do it. Build that soil. Let's bank some energy. So did a foliar feed last night over this, and most of the front potato block. Did not get the eastern block done. Had a little bit of foliar nutrient solution left. Wanted to get back last night and do it, but it was dark and I was tired, so I opted to come back and hit it this evening. So I brought another 5 gallons of water with me. I'll just bump up that amount that's left in the tank. But this did get a good foliar feed last night, and I already see a greening vigor increase already. And things are looking healthy and happy despite the heavy grazing pressure we're getting here. It's interesting as things merge more and fill in more. You can see a little bit of the disparity with the cedar there between bigger and smaller seed sizes and species. Now we got that strip of just rye there, and then a pretty good strip of blended on either side of it. Fairly even seeding overall. I feel like a little bit more refinement, I can get that seeding down nice. And I'm working on new ideas for better seeding arrangements for next year, but for now, that foliar feed gave everything a nice bump, and I'm going to go finish the other part of the foliar feed out front. Man, I can't get over how fast these radishes are growing. Okay, so over here, just all these radish plants all over the place there. They're not huge yet, but they're starting to put on a root. And then, as we kind of pry things apart in here, we can see the Austrian winter pea being propped up by the surrounding cover crop to help it stay upright and reach for the sun and compete. And we see some of the buckwheat starting to pop flower a little bit. This crop was hit with some accelerate last night and on the previous feed as well, which is sort of more on the flowering, fruiting, finishing, reproductive stage of plants, as far as like it accelerates that process. So these are flowering a bit early as a result of that. But I think given that it's about mid-September, today is September 11th, and considering that and seasonal temperatures and such, I think that's a really nice alignment with this time of year. And this entire block is filling in pretty nice uniform crops. And then, of course, our grazers are leaving behind some manure, so that's dropping some nutrient back into the block. And this is the natural system. And so when you think about another part of this agricultural loop where grazing would be driven by nutritional components of the crop growing in a given soil or area, even if it's a native one, and so consequently better soils produce more attractive nutrition and brings more grazing of all animal types. Interesting how in that process, in bringing more grazing, you're also bringing more manure returned to that grazing land. So as it improves, it accelerates the improvement. Interesting concept to consider. And these regenerative systems all work that way. As far as like, the more amplified you get the plant health, the more amplified the soil health gets, the faster and easier it is to get more plant health. It self-amplifies back and forth. It tips forward in a positive direction. As long as you stay aligned with the ecological principles and conserving energy flow, or actually making sure energy flows from leaf surface into soil in the form of exudates and sugars. As you work all these pieces together and combine them, you get this really incredible synergistic stack that just makes things explode. Don't forget, this cover crop was planted in the same ground that you see all around it. You see that distinctive line from green to, like, there's a cover crop there, but it's nowhere near as advanced in green, right? And the buckwheat was doing pretty well over there, but here it's super green, super dense, super thick. This crop was inoculated with BioCoat Gold and Spectrum DS. Those are a pair of inoculants that help build and transfer soil energy. They basically enhance microbial communities and intersoil communication, and they enhance the symbiotic processes that accelerate plant growth and soil energy being unlocked, to simplify it basically. So that makes a huge difference. And then we did a foliar feed immediately at emergence. That was a really nice time for targeting it on top of the inoculants. That gave it a huge advantage. Now it's getting some grazing, but that'll change that cytokine auxin balance. It'll change that tip back and make a higher level of cytokines. Those cytokines will make the plants grow more roots. As those roots grow out and that balance comes back, it'll shoot back in the form of shoots with a more robust, vigorous plant. So no matter what goes on here, unless it just gets grazed back to absolutely nothing, it can't grow. And that doesn't seem to be the case right now. This system will continue to amplify itself. Even if I walked away and didn't touch it again this year, it would rock and roll right on through. And then our rye will come through the winter, and our Austrian winter pea. And our Austrian winter pea will be in here fixing nitrogen and building soil and supporting microbial action even through the winter. And so will the rye. Those warm days, that stuff will pop up and run. It'll be growing. So a lot of different pieces working together. And then don't forget that the turnip and the daikon radish that are in here, those will winter kill. When they do, they'll leave behind channels in the soil and plenty of nutrients for both the rye over the winter, and especially in the springtime when we go to plant back in here, those nutrients will all be available in the soil. That'll be banked sunlight energy. All this green is our solar panels, and we're banking sunlight energy in the form of exudates and sugars and humic matter and microbial communities, and enhancing soil energy flow. So, and if you think that was just a weird random poop spot from our grazers, here's another one. And I'm sure if I look around more, we'll find more. So that system is working and already self-amplifying, and it will continue to do so. And we're about 24 hours out from a foliar feed right now, but I'll tell you what, you give it another 3 or 4 days, we'll really see a difference in this crop. And we'll probably see grazing pressure go up again because the deer will realize it's a even more preferred food, I'm imagining. Although the plants are maturing a bit more, so maybe there will be less tender shoots for them to chew on. We'll see. We'll keep an eye. Check back in on the honeybees. Lots of returning traffic. That's fantastic. I see a whole bunch of pollen coming in. This is all holy basil on this strip in here. And what I did last night's foliar feed, I came through and hit this real solid. So next few days we should see this explode and more flowers come on. And I'll bet you anything we start seeing a lot of honeybees in here working. Just looking back across the block here, you can see where there was like a fire strip out there and one close by where everything is darker, thicker, bigger. Interesting how quickly you can literally map soil quality when you put in a cover crop, especially if the cover crop's a little more diverse. You know, you get a sense of what grows better where. Interesting, that rain event actually looks like we had some flooding and puddling in here. So it puddle up against this, and it probably is, you know, flowed through this lower elevation slowly. But that's okay. That had to have come through. You know, like we walk up this elevation, that had to have seeped through and seeped out of our cross-cut trenches, because it had to cross this big soil berm here. Oh yeah, actually I think I even see some washing here and flooding here up against it. So that's interesting, running our, oh yeah, we had a puddle in here. Look at that. Interesting. So it looks like our water was being propagated out, you know, kind of along our valley, but also along our cut trenches, and then working its way across, just like we were trying to do with it. And it would definitely have been flowing a lot faster if we didn't have our row former row cut in here for garlic. That slowed it right down, and I'm sure that made sure the garlic got good moisture. That would have brought our water level up to here and like saturated this whole raised bed block. So I figure we just take a look at an engineering plan that we're working on for a septic system. There's a detail that I thought was quite relevant to what we're seeing in that cover cropping area. Very similar effect. With our systems, we use silt fencing to prevent erosion while a on-site wastewater treatment system or septic system is being constructed, and that prevents sediment and silt and erosion from being run off, especially into wetland areas and streams where it can really wreak havoc on that ecosystem. So part of the New York State DEC rule is that if you're going to disturb an area for construction, you have to protect it with silt fencing. And so you can see the silt fencing is set with a little bit of a trench and a fabric and a stake, and it catches flow from the slope and prevents the sediment. It lets the water go through, but keeps the sediment behind. Now you can see this on construction sites. Sometimes if you drive by, you'll see on the downslope side of the site, you'll see either a row of hay bales or an actual fabric type fence typically. And that basically does erosion and sediment control. So I thought I would just share an engineering detail for a little bit better conceptual understanding of it. So since we're talking about it, I'll just show you a map view of this project. We're building well, we're designing for a building, 3-bedroom house and a barn. The barn will have a bathroom, so it's technically a 4-bedroom system, basically. Waste treatment system, on-site water treatment system, or waste treatment system. And these are the laterals. This is a distribution box. So this whole field will be constructed, basically we'll be cleaning everything down to virgin soil, and then they'll be excavating trenches and installing what are called quick 5 infiltrators. They're basically like an upside down storage tank that go down in the trench, and it gives a greater capacity and allows for a longer storage time so that the soil can dissipate the waste. Basically that's all we're doing, is taking the effluent, which is the wastewater minus the solids, and dissipating it. And we do that based on the percolation rate of the soil, or how fast the soil can dissipate that water. And then we distribute it across a specific area. In this case, these laterals are set at 7-foot spacing, and they go down a slope. If you look at the proposed topographic contour labels here, you can see it runs between 272 foot of elevation and 280 foot. There's an 8% slope across the top of this field. So these laterals are actually on an incline, and I could even show you a cross section of it. Here, back on the same plan very quickly, here's a cross section or end view of that same field. Basically we're looking from the end of the field, and you can see the slope here, and you can see how we have a 3-to-1 slope to finish the taper off back to existing grade, and how we have an 8% slope across here, and all those laterals have these quick 5 infiltrators in them. And like I said, basically just an upside down chamber that acts as storage, and our laterals come in and dissipate water into these chambers, and then over time that water dissipates into the soil area around these chambers. Basically what I was really trying to show you was the temporary silt fencing, and you notice how this silt fencing encompasses the down slope side of this. And we could even jump into model space quick, and I can show you a larger area of the map. So you can see it goes down slope this way, and eventually that gets to a wet area or stream, a low area. And same over on this side, there's actually a wetland right here, and this is a 100-foot wetland buffer that you're looking at right here. And so if we were constructing this system, say over here on this steep slope here, I think that slope's probably too steep for a system, but say we would have to silt fence downstream, and we'd have to make sure that the edge of our construction area and our silt fence stayed outside of this 100-foot buffer off of that wetland. That's in part to let the grass and natural landscape and terrain capture and reclaim sediment and silt before it gets to a channel where water would flow. So that same concept, like we're doing here in the form of a silt fence, is the same thing that we're doing in that cropping area. Just thought I would illustrate that a little better for you. Also, if you need engineering done, contact Martin J. Wilms, wilmsengineers.com. So interesting to come back and study things. It's almost a good idea on a new block just to plant a cover crop to get an assessment of what's going on in that block, especially soil health and microbially. Like, you can literally see where things are good and bad pretty quick, as you can plainly see right here. This is an area that we're going to be cropping heavily. We have the ability to do very heavy multi-species, multi-level foliar feed, targeted, nutritionally amended, very high energy cropping systems within this area here. We're able to amend this on an economic scale, and we're able to yield soil and plant health at their maximum, and we're able to compress plant spacing down so there's basically no open soil in anything in this area while we're growing. And consequently, we can build tremendous soil energy, tremendous humic matter, and tremendous soil health very, very, very rapidly. But there's one drawback to that. You can't do any of that if your plants don't have enough water. And it doesn't matter what kind of plant it is, but if they don't have enough water, then they struggle and they stress, and they don't do that job of building soil well. So I'm willing to compromise a few months to a year to maybe 2 of disturbing this soil profile in order to get the gain benefit of good uniform water distribution across the whole block and end up yielding good results. And we'll build that soil right back up in no time, because like I said, this will be in the intensive system. And just remember, all this green you see coming up here was only planted a couple of weeks ago. It's just going to get greener and thicker and taller, and there's going to be a huge productive flower crop for our honeybees here. And this is not the advanced level that we're going to do inside the fence zone, where we can afford to tune amendments a little bit more and really, really get our health amplified. So that's why, if you're wondering, I'm willing to break my rules on this. Here we are on the other side in that low point. You can see all the silting where the water sat in here. It usually drains off that way, off into the woods on the neighboring property. So you can see from this angle probably a little better how those running across divert our water out to the sides and make it slow down more and spread off into our bed as best we can. That'll make a huge difference. And I'm taking as deep a rip as I can with the plow, and then when I clean this bed up, it'll be disced in. So those trenches will be deeper than the rest of our excavation, or rest of our soil work, I should say. We are now at this upper corner. You can see where I cut up and across this way. That's because I was setting up. There's a spot here where the road edge is. I'll show a clip of that from yesterday when it was raining heavily. The day before.
It rains harder. You can see.
Day before, I guess. I don't know. They all blur together. But I'll show a clip of that, and you can see where the water's running right down the right-hand road tire trench there.
It rains harder. You can see.
I was looking at it a little closer. It looks like it's collecting in here, in that low spot right in here, and then it's trickling down the hill. But so what I'm going to do is rip a spot from there, that low spot, out through our trench and out to this top rip here, and then that way the water that gets collected up here and starts to run out, we push into this upper corner where gravity will not push water from the lower section where we're captured it. So we're going to try and evenly water the whole field basically by diverting water from a couple different areas, and we'll be able to sequester and manage and drain that very easily with the soil practices that we're going to use. So there you go. Cut in from a little above the low point, and I'll go back and fill this in. Eventually I'll probably just rake it in or maybe disc it under, just get it back to a normal grade. But we know now underneath that there is this trench of soil that's been opened up, and that will give us a channel for water to be collected from up here all the way up the hill here and come down through and feed into our block, and make sure that we put plenty of moisture in when we get even small rain events. And of course, as comparison, from exactly the same kind of soil, just not treated the same, but exactly the same soil, we can see a very clear division line. And what do? A little bit of tillage, a little bit of amendment, inoculants with cover crops, and a couple of foliar feeds. Really not a lot of investment if you know how to do it in the right sequence to get set up for next year, and to immediately be headed away from using chemical nutrients and dependency on oil-based products. And at closing the fertility loop ultimately, because if you get soil rocking hard enough, you don't need to be adding to it. The plants can do that energy work for you. And yeah, you might need to up your trace minerals every so often just to keep it on point. But overall, once you get the energy flow happening, it'll keep happening at a better and better rate. And we're lucky enough to start in this soil from the soil tests I took a little further up the valley, actually. Actually, I think one was somewhere up in here. But from those soil tests I took, we know our humic matter in here is about 6.17% according to the test. So that's a nice amount of carbon to have in the soil already to start from. But, you know, you can see these heavy clay soils can be pretty devoid of growth and life pretty easily. And yet they can be turned into a beautiful block of green pretty easily as well. Friday, September 12th, just about 5 o'clock or maybe a touch before. Just back up to the farm here. As I pulled in, I was noticing something very encouraging. We have germinated rye already. And if you look up this row, all those little flat-bladed green shoots coming up are rye popping up. Now, if you recall, I talked in the video where I talked about planting this, I discussed very specifically about this buckwheat straw sitting on the ground and helping retain moisture and giving a little bit better seeding bed for the rye. And boy, doesn't that sure seem to be the case. Look it up on top of the row here, where some of it's germinating, but it's struggling a bit, versus down in that ditch where, of course, it's a little moisture also, but where that moisture is being held in, and especially like right around where the straw is, versus even the spot here that's kind of barren from the straw. Much higher germination rate in that area. So interesting observations to make. And isn't that always what steering good farming adjustments is about? Your ability to observe the crop and understand what's happening and going on, and to dial in on the more minute details, the minutia, as it were, and really get a better understanding of what's going on and how what you're doing is affecting what's going on, and understanding the multiple effects that one thing you do can have on a crop. So we got our sweet clover is just exploding here since we did the foliar feed. It was red in here and white as well, mixed all through this. That's starting to take off really nice and forming a nice cover crop for us. This whole block is starting to fill in nice. Then over here we'll just take another look at some daikon radish. 2-inch diameter daikon radish right there. Quite large. And notice again our winter rye germinating all in the under canopy of that with very little effort. And we can see it's a bit shaded in here, but you can imagine that as the sun comes up and passes across the southern sky and sets off to the west, you have this continuous angle shift all day. So morning sun is going to come in through this opening in the canopy over here and hit it. Some afternoon sun will get down through here, dappled through the leaves and hit it. And then, you know, we hit the shade about this time of day, but just before this, you got that afternoon sun shooting in here. So you got 3 different angles of solar attack, so to speak, to ensure that the germinating stuff gets light. And I don't think that rye is going to have any trouble getting established and up and going. And in fact, it might overtake the daikon radish even before frost sets, but we'll see how it all plays out. But it's very encouraging to see solid germination on that. So we're just a little further down the row here now. And you can see that foliar feed divider line again. Still such a striking difference. But now, since we went through the foliar feed here a couple nights ago, I see a big bump of explosion of growth in all the clovers in here, and I see that secondary deeper canopy filling in more and greening up a deeper, darker green. And then in addition to that, we're getting kind of a reflower here on the buckwheat, So that's awesome. We're supplying some more nectar and pollen source for our honeybees and also for the native pollinators, keeping that energetic system pumped. And then yesterday down on the far end, maybe we'll stop and take a peek on the way through. I know I saw a second germination round of buckwheat happening in spots, and it's probably in here too, although it's harder to spot as this canopy denses up a bit, and maybe not as prolific in here. This was mowed later, of course, than the potato block was, so we've had a better opportunity for the buckwheat to germinate. I don't see that happening in here so much, so we'll take a peek down on the other end. I'll just show you how that's coming in as a recover crop of buckwheat, a secondary of that. Okay, we're down on the northern end of the field now. I apologize for the mower noise, but you can see things are a little bit more robust, a little bit larger leaves, a little bit more bumped up here, and that's just in part because they get a couple of more hours of sun, basically going north of that telephone pole, that first telephone pole from up on the right there on north, where those big maple trees don't interfere with the afternoon sun as much. So that may also be a factor in this. But right here, you can see where we mowed that buckwheat down. We created that dense mat, and now it's actually germinating back up through again. So even without planting a winter rye, it's going to reseed itself and give us, fill in our cover crop completely green again. So that's a nice little tip to know if we need it in the future. We may exercise the use of that next year in a more controlled fashion. These clovers too are responding very well to the foliar feeds and the opened up canopy and sunlight. Also, you can probably notice even on camera, there are quite a few more open buckwheat flowers down in this end where the sunlight is a little bit longer. And out in this north end, this is actually the lesser quality soil on this end compared to like back toward, beyond where that first hump is. The soil quality improves significantly. So interesting to see how better soil versus less sunlight work. Kind of demonstrates how powerful that photosynthetic effect is as far as the total energy of a crop. It sort of demonstrates that even though the soil is as good here, when we boost the photosynthetic capacity of the plants using targeted foliar feeds, we can greatly enhance the growth, health, quality, yield, vigor, etc. of the plants in that soil. And of course, every time we do that, we can't do that without building soil, so long as we're doing it with organic processes and not disrupting the microbiome. I should also mention, this strip that we're standing on right now, I plan to be sort of an intermediate intercrop, cover cropped roadway, access roadway between the two beds, where we'll split the beds on either side of this, and this will be our access road that gets between them. Provides two things: access closer to this side for this stuff, access to the edge of this so we don't have to run over the crop to foliar feed necessarily, and additionally an alternate roadway in case something happens on that roadway. Somebody breaks down, gets stuck, I don't know, whatever. In the event of, provides an alternative route that'll give us a firm roadbed but still be a cover crop and be building soil as well for us, and keeping that microbiome alive and that soil nutrient profile pumped with exudates and sugars, and keep our pollinators flying all around this field just like they are today. Look at all these mollies. I digress. Anyway, point being, This roadway here also got, when I seeded clover, I made sure I carried the clover seed out through here with a plan for this to be cover cropped with clover seed on up through. I think I terminated. That'll give us a nice, basically a cover crop roadbed that doesn't even necessarily have to be mowed. Self-maintaining, pollinator supporting, soil supporting, and yet not interfering with other crops, not causing light deprivation. In fact, clovers are legumes, and so they'll be fixing nitrogen if they're paired with the right biology, and they'll actually be putting nitrogen into the soil, and that'll reduce our actual nitrogen input needs dramatically. Just a quick glimpse of the cover crop and the fence area here. Beautiful, thriving green carpet of photosynthetic capacity. Doing well. And getting very close to getting some of these fence posts concreted up and working on finishing this project out. And then last night when I finished up that foliar feed, I came back through and made sure I got all of the holy basil up in here with some of the remainder of what was in that tank. So that should help keep that rocking and help support bee colonies right up until the end of the nice weather. Also, I can already see, I haven't been over to the hives yet, but I can already see some nice traffic coming in over there. Hopefully you can see that on camera. Yeah, look at that. Man, they are rocking today. I should say it's absolutely stellar weather. Holy basil is smelling stronger already today. And I should also mention, even though I only foliar fed last night, you already see new leaf tip shoot growth popping out. That's how effective foliar feeds and good sunlight can be. This little bit healthier, more advanced plant, you can see like this whole tip is basically new growth, including new flower sites starting, new bud sites. So that'll set us back into flowering lots of this again, which would be really good for our honeybees. So all of that up to the buckwheat edge is holy basil. There's that long strip that runs right up through here is all holy basil. And then the majority of this double brush hogged row here is holy basil as well. It's all been foliar fed. And hopefully we'll explode it out and reflower all over. You can definitely see some nutrient deficiencies or excesses in spots here, some leaf yellowing, but I'm hoping that last foliar feed will bump this back to super nectar and pollen production. Now I'm out here laying out corner brace post hole points. I did some quick CAD work before I came up just to figure out where we should be. 5'7" from the post to the hole for the 45-degree angle support. I'm going to try to drill a 45-degree angle hole in the ground this way so our brace post can come straight up and be directly in the ground. If that doesn't work, we'll auger the hole out more and pour a bit more concrete in to make sure it's anchored solid. But we'll see how it goes. I think I should be able to.
So very simple, just to illustrate the concept in AutoCAD. We have the ground here. We have our corner post. And then each direction going down the fence line, we have a brace post in place to maintain that position in a triangular lock. Basically, triangles are one of the strongest geometric structures or shapes. So we're taking advantage of that here and putting a 45-degree angle in. And you can see we have a 10-foot post here, and it's 2 foot below grade, and then on an angle at 45. And then I can go, okay, so knowing that a 10-foot post is going to be used for the angle as well, what is the distance here? Real simple in CAD, and it'll tell me 5 feet 6.85 inches. So that's the reason I measured around 5 foot 7 inches. The hole will be 4 inches in diameter. It'll give us a little bit of play, and that'll help us brace these up. So then below grade, we're going to set concrete for these braces and the corner post in both directions. And that way we form a nice heavy-duty structure that doesn't require guy wires outside the fence that would cause all sorts of interference for mowers, tractors, vehicles, and people walking around the fence. So be self-contained bracing within the fence.
So what I noticed, the cedar and seeding setup actually was pretty darn precise. We got just a little bit of overlap in a couple of spots into the trench. But other than that, we hit right on target, right to the edge of that fence line over here. And boy, you can really see where the cedar came through. It's like pass right around the corner and missed this little corner edge a bit. Pretty good for by hand. I'm not completely dissatisfied with that. Here overlooking the fenced area or fencing area where we're cover cropping on that slope on the east side. We're looking back at it right now. And this is a nice high spot not too far away that I could put a tank or a couple of tanks as a water supply for foliar feeds, for, you know, washing stuff off, various stuff until we have a better water supply here. So I was just eyeing the top of this hill for that, but I'm back in here again, crawling through because it's so dense with cedar, as you can see. As I was crawling through, I couldn't help but notice, or actually I stepped on it first. It had such an interesting cushioning feeling even under my feet on my boots. I had to stop and have another look at this stuff. This is a lichen, I believe. And look at this delicate pad that this forms. So my understanding is lichen are a combination of bacteria and fungi, sort of in the same organism or same superorganism. I'm not super clear on it, but basically it's a combination of the two. So they can capture sunlight and manufacture energy through it, I believe through chlorophyll pathway, but I'm not positive of that. And they can also scavenge rock nutrient. And what you'll notice is that this rock here, this ridge, is primarily shale rock up here.
And so really the only stuff we see growing are the cedar trees, which can establish themselves in very dry conditions, and the lichen, like that. And then occasionally where there's a deer pile or a dying, rotting, dead, rotting log, you'll see mushroom blooms through here. So if I see any mushroom blooms, I'll grab a clip, but it's pretty dry right now. See a lot more of that in the springtime here. Well, we might as well confirm. Lichen are composite organisms formed by a symbiotic relationship between a fungus and a photosynthetic partner, algae or cyanobacteria. Key characteristics include a diverse range of colors and forms: crustose, foliose, fruticose, a unique body structure called a thallus, their ability to grow slowly in extreme environments, slow growth rates, and their sensitivity to air pollution, making them valuable bioindicators. And their symbiotic relationship between fungus and photosynthetic partner, their mutualistic partnership between a fungus, a mycobiont, and a photosynthetic organism, which is usually an algae or a cyanobacterium, photobiont. Food and shelter. The fungus provides structural support, absorbs water and nutrients, and protects the algae or cyanobacterium. The photobiont, in turn, produces food through photosynthesis, which benefits both organisms. The thallus is the structure that we were looking at there, similar to leaves, like plants do. Crustose are the flat, crust-like and tightly attached to the substrate. Foliose are leaf-like or flake-shaped lobes, and shrubby and multi-branched, appearing tufts on the branches. So it looks like these are fruticose, the ones that we're looking at. And yeah, they're found in diverse habitats and so on and so forth. They reproduce sexually by producing spores, which are then dispersed to find a suitable algal or cyanobacterial partner to form a new lichen. Very interesting. And obviously they're highly sensitive to air pollution, which we don't have in the middle of the cedars up on top of the farm ridge. Nope, never can really find a good complaint reason for that. What an awesome view. Saturday, September 13th. Not going to spend a lot of time here, but I thought we'd just take a look at the rye. You can see in just 24 hours how fast that is growing in already. And it's going to continue that process. And we should move up the row and have a look at these radish too as they recover back so rapidly with the foliar feeds. Even where we've been through here with the tractor and the tires, and it got beat down pretty hard. Those radishes have popped right back up, and they're filling that green canopy cover in, even down those dead furrows. And maybe I can dig up a clip, but if not, if you recall, these dead furrows between the rows are much harder soil. The row cutter barely scrapes them up into a nice formed bed. So it's really cool to see that cover crop penetrating that so well. Here's a radish that got broken off, probably by me on the tractor, but look how big that thing is. And it broke off again. I mean, you could club somebody with that thing. That's a monster. I caught snooping there. I always really enjoy seeing the turkeys. They're such cool birds to watch. Just thought we'd have a quick glimpse at the cover crop here before I get started. Continue prep work for posts. I'm going to drill these 8 holes today if I can get them done. And then I'm probably going to go back. We have long-term forecast isn't showing any rain for like the next 10 days. So I'm hoping by then I can get concrete and get the rest of the pieces together to do this. So I'm going to
I'm going to drill the 8 holes for the brace posts for the corners today. And then I'm going to go back through all the posts. And we had a lot of rain run down through our trench here in that last really heavy rain event. So I can tell just by looking at this that a lot of this is washed back in. So I'm going to go through and pull each post out, drill back down to our depth. And that'll also help me discover which posts still need to be jackhammered out where the rock is. And I'll mark those up so I know which they are. And then hopefully I'll get a hold of the jackhammer either sometime this weekend or closer to the garlic block here. Just eyeing this cover crops again. And boy, I think I can really tell which is the daikon radish and which is the purple top turnip now. I believe these are the purple top turnip with these giant wide leaves. Man, yeah, and they sure are, because there's the purple turnip starting to show in the soil. So that's really super exciting. We already know what the daikon radish can do, and how thick and dense and robust those are growing is excellent. But now looking at these purple top turnips and the size of the leaves on these and how fast they put a leaf set like that out, I can tell that these are going to be super duper photosynthetic soil building plants. So I'm really glad I incorporated that in this mix. All right, I got to stop babbling and get to work. Okay, I like it when a plan comes together. I got down here, I got at least 24 inches below actual grade, not edge of trench, but actual grade. And I started drilling angled, and I found that was just doesn't work well with this. Either point the exhaust at yourself, or you have a tilt and the fuel tank vent cap tends to spatter fuel back on you. So I opted to drill vertically and get my hole open, and then just take the breaker bar and cut the angle I need for the post to sit out fairly close to where we're going. So the southern 2 corners have holes drilled, angled holes set in prep. And I got to get some bolts, and I think what we're going to do is set this plumb and then bring the 2 brace angles down in and cut a channel out of the middle so we have 2 ears to come off of, and wrap those around our main posts, and then we'll drill a hole through all of them and bolt them all together to interlock them so the brace and the vertical and the other brace are locked together. And then we got minimum 24 inches to grade on our hole depth for all 3 holes, and that'll give us a nice concrete base, give us a good angle. And with this angled out widened piece, this will help kind of form like a nice concrete plug into this soil below, which is clay and rock and just a very tight, hard soil. So that'll give us a nice mounting block point to keep everything stable and solid. So same on this other corner over here, and I'm going to go do the northern corner. Attention to the honeybee hives for a moment. Phenomenal traffic coming in and out. Full on collection of resources. And I should mention, just today we got honeybees bumping all through the holy basil again, as it's just starting to pop flower again. And if you recall, that's from a foliar feed we did on Tuesday or Wednesday. I think Wednesday, and today's Saturday, so 4 days ago. And we already see honeybees working flowers as a result. So these foliar feed tools are not just a powerful tool for soil and crops, but also a powerful tweaking tool to ensure that your honeybees have good flowering, fruiting crops to gather nectar and pollen and resources from. Over here too is another one. And you can see there's only a couple flowers that just opened on these now since the foliar feed. But even just those couple, and they're right on them. So here's the third one. Same thing. 24-inch hole cut for the thrust block angle, basically. Same here. Actually, I don't think I did re-drill this out, so I probably will re-drill this out quick. That's a little better. That sucker's down to almost 30 inches, so we got a nice solid deep corner post hole depth. We got our brace posts ready to go, and I gotta do that upper corner. That's where we start running into rock, so I'm gonna take my coffee break and come back and hit that while we still have light, and that'll give me a better sense of how to move forward. I think I'm gonna end up using a jackhammer and jackhammering down into the rock so we get a good depth set. And so there we go. We're drilled right to the rock here on each of these holes. And now it's time to get the jackhammer, because I want to go deeper. We're maybe 10-12 inches in each of these holes below grade. So look who snuck all the way back around me while I was over here working. I want to grab the better camera, but I know if I get up to move and grab it, they'll take off. Just want to run the upper corner here, northeast corner, digging the one post hole. Just wanted to show how our angle post comes down into this, but then there's still a concrete plug that will be below that. So that's going to like lock in like a peg almost down into the hard clay soil underneath. And there's a gravel layer under there as well. And then this whole block will be full of concrete, and it'll basically act like a thrust block. Sunday, September 14th. That winter rye is taking right off nice. And I'm finally back here with the generator, and there's a jackhammer. Ready to jackhammer some rock out. Was planning to get here earlier today, but had a few setbacks, but hopefully we can make some progress now. Alright, went through and jackhammered down into rock on all the stuff that absolutely needed it. Some spots didn't get super deep, but we got like probably 6 inches of rock, solid rock wall in there, and we're going to pour concrete in. At the end of the day, we're just kind of holding the fence up, so I think we'll be okay. Should be pretty sturdy. And then we're going to have our corner braces here at 45s on the corner from both directions on all four corners. So should be pretty sturdy. Rock from here in. We get into it with a jackhammer. This is a side fence post. This is not a corner post. That should be good enough. Stabilize the post, pour concrete in. Should be a nice solid lock right into the bedrock. That winter rye is taking right off nice.